Is this the end of the Obidient movement or the birth of the most powerful political force in modern Nigerian history? It depends on how you say it. We can only know in hindsight. Peter Obi has officially dumped the Labour Party for the ADC. But wait, David Mark and Aregbesola are in the building too. Are we witnessing a major coalition? We don't know. Or shocker of 2027. And the Labour Party has already apologized for Nigerians for fielding him in the last election and calling him a traitor. So my question is Peter Obi a Janus or a sellout? The question is for you to answer. Let's go into it. Good morning and good evening to everyone, depending on where you're watching me from. Welcome to Raging Hotmic. Smash the like button, like, subscribe, drop your comments and share. We all know Peter Obi was a presidential candidate for the Labour Party in the last Nigerian presidential election in 2023. Despite joining the Labour Party very late during the election cycle, Peter Obi still managed to shock the world by securing or winning 12 states, including the FCT, and winning 25% of the votes in an election that was noted for not just violence but several malpractice. Some claim he's the rightful winner of the election, while others claim he won the election in social media. It depends on how you say it. But in the end, he went to Supreme Court and he lost the case. And the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was sworn in as the president. Now, back in 2027 now, what did Obi do? Rather than stay in the Labour Party and build the party, as some people say, Peter Obi has decided to dump the party and join the ADC, which is a mega coalition consisting of the likes of Nasiru El-Rufai, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, Dr. David Mark, Emeka Ihedioha, and so many others. So now the talking point is Obi's decision to join the ADC. Is it a sellout or is it a masterstroke? Did he just sacrifice the soul of his political ambition for the structure? Now, to be sincere with you guys, Obi is in a no-win situation. Extremely no-win situation. Why did I say he's in a no-win situation? You have to realize that the same reason he's being criticized, or the same stick that is used to beat him for not having a structure, is the same stick that is being used to beat him for not joining the ADC. What do you mean by structure? In Nigeria, especially in Nigerian politics, structure is extremely important. Let me take you back to 2023 election. The Labour Party had only 30 polling agents, 30% of the polling agents nationwide. So in 70% of those polling units, Labour Party had no agents there. None. That was a hurriedly formed coalition, or whatever you call it, because he had most of the youths who were supportive of him. So they had absolutely zero structure, and yet he won 12 states. So now in 2027, he has decided to sacrifice the soul. What do I mean by the soul? The soul of his political ambition is what makes him different. He's not just a regular politician. Yes, he's a politician. He's been two-time governor of Anambra State. But he is seen, you can argue all you want, but that is the perception most of his supporters have of him, which are so many and cannot be ignored, that he's not a regular politician. He's seen as a politician who doesn't maintain the status quo. This is a guy that has claimed and has shown and proven that he rejected the offer of a pension or any form of payment at the end of his time as governor of Anambra State. This is a man that has challenged anyone to prove where he mismanaged money. It is very difficult for Nigerian politicians to do that. Yeah, I get it. There's some criticism of him as regards the investment in the beer company that is tied to him or something like that. There's some criticism about that. But that to me might be the most or the major criticism of his government. This is a man that left the state richer than he met it. So I've never heard that in Nigerian politics. I've never. that a state becomes richer or you leave more money behind for your successor. Although I would have said he should have used that money to invest in the state. But it depends on what you mean by investment or how you see investment. But it is on record that he left the finances of the state in a better health for his successor. This is a man that doesn't move in an affluent manner, doesn't have so much police escorts, cars, or isn't associated with affluence. So that is why his sin has been different. You can argue all you want, but when you bring him and contrast him with his fellow politicians, for example like Nyesom Wike and so many other people, you see a difference. But now the problem is that despite all this, he hasn't proven to be a politician who builds a strong structure or a coalition. This has been his weakness, and his supporters always argue that it was nearly impossible for him to build that structure in Labour Party. It could be valid because of the way the present government uses or tries to destroy opposition. You just heard the Bauchi state governor come out swinging, accusing the government of trying to associate him with terrorism simply because he doesn't want to join the ADC, the APC. It could be a valid point. So if they could do that, or if they want to do that to the present governor, what of Peter Obi? He becomes so easy for them. He doesn't have the immunity the Labour Party doesn't. And it is being claimed, alleged, that it could be the presidency of the APC who tried to dismantle and to create confusion for the Labour Party, where you have two factions. So now, the problem with that is that Peter Obi has built his platform, has built himself as someone who doesn't, or who is not in bed with the regular politicians who he has alleged in the past destroyed the Nigerian system, economic system, political system, democratic system. So having said that, it is surprising or shocking to see him with these same politicians. But in reality, you and I know he needs to win election. You need a coalition, a very strong coalition to win election. Election is not won on social media. So it is this same coalition that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu used to win the election that then Jonathan was kicked out of office back in 2015. So if he didn't go into that coalition, the APC wouldn't have been a party that was victorious or successful in that particular election. So you can criticize Peter Obi all you want, but we all know that he needs politicians winning election. They might be corrupt, yes, but the average person out on the street is busy with his daily life. He's busy going to work. He's not ready, or he doesn't understand, or 2 years is too small to understand how these political settings work. So one of the best things you can do is to bury your hatchet and win the elections and join them. But the problem is, if you join them to win election, how does it make you different? It's a very difficult act, or very difficult decision to balance. Extremely difficult, because when you venture and when you end up winning election, these same politicians are some of them are those who will end up filling in some of the political positions in your government. So once you win election, will they suddenly become born again Christians? Will they suddenly become new born politicians? It rarely happens, except at the point of winning election, you disassociate yourself from these politicians, which is almost impossible, and which we haven't seen in Nigeria. You all remember President Buhari? He claimed he was going to fight corruption. He claimed he was going to clean Nigeria rid of corruption. He claimed for how many? This man continued to contest. He contested over 4 presidential elections. There was a time he lost the election and he came on live TV and wept and was wiping his tears with handkerchief. He claimed the election was stolen from him. He promised heaven on earth. But once he won the election, he was as worse, if not the worst, democratically elected president Nigeria has ever had. You see, in theory, it is easier said than done. But looking at the track record of Mr. Peter Obi, as regards his life before, after, and in power, it could be said it might be different. Now, does his supporters or his Obidient movement, because he built a strong force as regards the Obidient movement, do the Obidient movement still support him? in this ADC, I don't think they leave him. I don't think they see. I think so many of his movements, so many of his supporters are cheering for him to have joined the ADC, because I think they are tired of being outside the system. At the end, power is the most important thing. I'm not saying you have to do anything to grab power, but you can take advantage of some loopholes in order to grab power. There was no way in this world Peter Obi could have contested and won a presidential election without going into coalition with some politicians. So he just did. So at the end, it could be said to be a masterstroke. It could be said to be a move that stains his political history. Because if this coalition doesn't work, how does he now claim to be different from these politicians? How does he now distance himself from these same people he once criticized? So in essence, this coalition he has to get it right this time around in 2027. Now, after that, we go to the Atiku and El-Rufai factor. This is a party or a coalition that already has Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and you all know how, I will say, desperate Alhaji Atiku Abubakar wants to be the president of Nigeria. This is as far back as after he was the vice president to Obasanjo, General Olusegun Obasanjo. In 2003, it was claimed he wanted to contest against his boss. So his ambition dates back. Even before that, you remember he contested the election with Abiola, Chief Moshood Abiola. So every time he's always contesting. And the problem is he has lost so much credibility in the process. Because you all know, back in eastern Nigeria or in the southeast, several times they voted for him. But in the last election, he didn't pick up any state. He lost in all the states. Because this is why he's seen as desperate. And this is a time where it was all agreed by most Nigerians that it was the turn of the South in the last election. He still contested. He's seen as the brain behind the ADC. Seen as the big financer of the party. So, what now happens? You can't have two captains in one ship. Does Atiku step down for Peter Obi, or does Peter Obi step down for him? Does Atiku deputize for Peter Obi, or does Peter Obi deputize for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar? It becomes difficult. And Peter Obi has already said he's not going to be vice president to anybody. Even at that, how does he convince his supporters to vote for somebody in a ticket where he's going to be the vice president? It's extremely difficult, because we all know the vice president is like the spare tire. Really does nothing. Forget about what Buhari told us about Oshibanjo being in charge of the economy and fight Boko Haram. It's not done that way. It never worked. It doesn't work. So Obi, if he's the vice presidential candidate, is going to be seen as the spare tire. The best hope he has is that he takes over from Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. So do you think his supporters, the Obedients, will be enthusiastic to go to polls and vote Obi if he's a vice presidential candidate? I don't think so. But also, we are forgetting how frustrated most Nigerians are as regards the present government. I think many of them are going to do anything to see they don't return back to power. But that is even if the election is free and fair. I have a problem with this. A system where the executive appoints the INEC chairman, the electoral body in charge of elections. It's not like the American system where each state conducts its election. No. The Nigerian system, all the elections are done federally. So that means the federal government has a huge advantage, monopoly I call it, of power to decide who becomes the president. So, will the election be free and fair? It hardly ever is. In fact, it dates back to the elections in 1992 that produced MKO Abiola. That could be said to be the freest free and fair election we ever had, in which we had Professor Humphrey Nwosu as the umpire. Ever since that time, we've never had any better elections. It got so bad that Alhaji Musa Yar'Adua, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, had to say that the same elections that brought him to power was absolutely rigged. So will the election be free and fair this time? If it is free and fair, who becomes the candidate of the ADC? Will Atiku support Obi, or will Obi support Atiku? You also have some people like Rotimi Amechi. This is going to be very, very interesting. Get your popcorns ready. You also have the Dati factor. Dati was the vice presidential candidate to Peter Obi. He hasn't publicly joined him. He hasn't joined him. He has claimed in the past he's not joining the APC, the ADC, because it's a party that he feels has many of these politicians who has destroyed the Nigerian system. So what happens to Ahmed Dati Baba? Does he join the ADC now that his boss has joined the ADC, or he's still in the Labour Party? Is that the end of his political ambition, or does he contest under the Labour Party? So if he contests and he becomes a flag bearer of the Labour Party, then he somehow dents the image of Peter Obi, because he's going to be seen as someone who stayed back in the Labour Party to bring a structure while Obi sold out. There's so many puzzles in this game. It's going to be very interesting 2027. All this we don't know, but what we know right now is that the coalition seems to be getting started, and how they manage to win or kick out the present government is something we don't know, something to be observed. It's going to be a long year, and I hope it ends positive for Nigerians. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Bye bye.